I'll never forget the day that I learned a secret that my mother kept from me that changed the way I thought about myself and my place in the world. My mother's from a rural town in the South by way of the transatlantic slave trade. And if you've ever heard of the saying, a pot to pee in and a window to throw it out of, in my grandma's house in the country, she knows what I'm talking about, there was a pot and a window to throw it out of. In those days, the most that a girl could hope for was to meet a nice man to make her his wife and give her a nice life. So after my mother graduated high school on a trip to New York, she met and eventually married my father and began having children at the age of 20, which I guess is a step up from my grandmother, who a man impregnated her when she was 13 years old. When I was 9, I was writing in my journal. And this is the journal where, when I grew my first adult hair, I plucked it out and taped it in this journal, so you know the accounting had to be right. I asked my mother, how do you spell swollen? And she shrugged it off and laughed, but she didn't know. And that was the first time that I began to question my mother's level of education. I'm from the Bronx, and for those of you who don't know the Bronx, it's referred to as historically underrepresented. In other words, it's the ghetto. And I don't know about any of you, but I didn't see many levels of success when I was a child. How many people here remember The Cosby Show? Okay. That was the first time that I got the inclination that I could go to school. In fact, I applied to one school, and it was on the same campus as Denise Huxtable. So when I got my acceptance letter, I was ecstatic. I burst through the door, Mama, look! And when she came out of the room, she was sad. And I thought she was sad because I was going away, but the truth was much worse than that. It wasn't until my sophomore year that I got that dreadful phone call that my dear sweet mother, at the age of 41, was dead. And the saddest part is that I had not seen her for months. I was the typical student before she died. After, I spiraled. So much so that the department chair pulled me aside and said, what's going on? And I told him, I confided that my mother had died. And he paused for a long while before he spoke, and he said, don't think about why she died. Think about why she lived. And that changed everything for me. I thought about the sacrifice that she made. She must have gotten her diagnosis around the time that I got my acceptance letter. And I thought about the burden she carried to hold that secret in. No matter how hard it was, I thought about her sacrifice, and I did it. It took an extra year, but I became the first female graduate on my mother's side. Thank you. I went on to become an entrepreneur, and my mother made $25,000 a year. I remember the first time that I brought in $25,000 in a month. Yeah. I am a life coach and a clinical hypnotherapist, and so I do a lot of visualization. So journey with me. I wrote a book, and one of my most pivotal affirmations is, you are a manifestation of an ancestor's dream. I want you to imagine your ancestors in the darkest of times choosing love. Whether they came across the transatlantic slave trade or crossed over the Bering Strait, I want you to imagine all that went into so that someone like you could be here. I told you that I would tell you a secret, and the secret is, I gave it away earlier. I hadn't seen my mother for months. Why was she crying when I came out of the room? When did she get her diagnosis? The truth is, I don't know. Anyone here who has ever struggled with a parental relationship, remember, you can't change the past, but the stories that you tell yourself, you have the choice. When it comes to a situation where you may not have closure and will never know the truth, the stories you tell yourself are up to you. You are the manifestation of an ancestor's dreams. Now, what was the dream that they dreamt when they thought of you?